right, it's the LOTD pod, and of course that is our theme music, The Time Worm by Richard Shirk, and this is Flick, and across from me is Richard Shirk.
Hey, I thought that tune sounded familiar.
And we're just going to do a little bonus segment here. A lot of new music out already this year in the 2021. Everybody's so eager to get 2020 over that the new music was just bursting at the seams. So there's a lot to talk about. We wanted to do a quick little roundup of the January new music.
Oh yeah, there's so much out there, and I feel like between new jams being released in December, traditionally like the under the Christmas tree kind of release schedule, and then in January, the people that want to kind of have an open field and not be associated with Christmas music, it's just a real gold mine out there. So, Sean, what's first on your list, buddy?
Well, I have some singles. Like I have some albums, and I figure I'll build to the albums. So I maybe just a quick little overview of the singles that I've been listening to. First, there's a Canadian supergroup, if you will, called Tons. They have a new single out called My Memories. They feature Matt Murphy, who was in the band The Flashing Lights, and Chris Murphy. Not related, I don't believe, but Chris Murphy and Matt Murphy. Chris Murphy is the bass player, or I guess multi-instrumentalist, you should call him, of the band Sloan. And what else?
Shout out to Sloan, one of those bands in the 90s and aughts where you don't mean to, but you end up with like 4 Sloan records, and they're all pretty good.
Yeah, all great. I'm a huge Sloan fan, of course. To plug a show that you might want to check out. Almost a year ago at this time, I was interviewing Chris Murphy in Kansas City. So if you're new to the podcast, go and check that out. That's last February 2020. Did an hour-long show. I actually I did about a 90-minute interview with him, and it was cut down to an hour. So a lot of good stuff in that, if I do say so myself. I
bet, yeah. And those are in that interview is in the Left of the Dial podcast archives. And what's the best place to find that?
They're all good wherever you download your podcast, as the saying goes.
Cool. And then a lot of the songs that we're mentioning this week, we're going to be collecting onto our Left of the Dial Spotify playlist. So
that's right. Yeah. So the LOTD Spotify page. And by the way, you can, if you want to access any of our past episodes, you can find those on Spotify, among iTunes and all of the other places. But we also have an LOTD pod page, as Richard just mentioned, where we will be putting together playlists, including, but not reduced to, the playlist of new music that we're discussing right now. Other singles that are on my list. In some cases, it's because I don't really want to recommend the albums, but for instance, the new Weezer album, which I think for the most part is getting pretty good reviews. I don't think it's a great batch of songs, but I do like the string arrangements that they use throughout the album, and I felt like the song, All My Favorite Songs, was worth including on the list. I'm not going to recommend the album though.
Well, but I just want to give a quick shout out to Weezer fans, Patrick, my nephew, and my sister Kate, and good fun band to get into when you're a little kid. I mean that in a good way, really it's an avenue to find out the precursor of the rock DNA that resides in a Weezer record is usually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I guess it depends on at what point you're a kid, though, because they've at this point tried on a few different hats that I don't think all fit them very well. So if you're a kid, like when they were doing, I guess I don't know this. I don't know. I'm not good with the stuff that I basically ignored, so I'm not going to bother to reference them. But they've gone through some. They've had some duds out there that, if you're a kid during those times, maybe you want to go back to the earlier stuff.
Yeah, I think one of Patrick's favorite songs is "Back to the Shack," which when I myself was I just turned 40, so I'm not a kid anymore, obviously. But when I was a kid, it was Blue Album and then Pinkerton, and I think "Back to the Shack" is the only Weezer song that I've intentionally sent to anyone else recently. Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah.
that was a case of Weezer trying to reclaim their early glory too. So yeah,
And please see
and
the music video because it's really awesome.
yeah, I've never seen it. But yeah, this album, which the album is Okay Human, which obviously is their uh, little take on OK Computer. Not that musically there's any similarities, but yeah, it's the songs are not their strongest. It's an all right album, and it sounds pretty good. Like I said, the strings are pretty interesting, and it works really well with Weezer songs. It's just not the strongest overall, though.
Oh no.
It's not a thumbs down. It's kind of a thumb sideways.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Well, I've got a few.
All right.
Um, I think since I mentioned that I turned 40, it might be relevant to, and it probably makes a lot of sense to our listeners out there that definitely heard about this album on NPR. So unbeknownst to me, I kind of know a bit about Owsley Stanley and how he fits into uh, the story of the Grateful Dead, not just about being like the best LSD chemist on the West Coast at that time or in the world, whatever, but also the engineer of their state of the art, ahead of its time sound system. Owsley was a real audiophile. I think one of his kids said that Owsley was an audiophile in a lo-fi era. So, I mean, you think about archival footage of how the Beatles were mic'd at Shea Stadium, uh, like they pretty much weren't. It was all stage volume. So Owsley is trying to, at the time in the late 60s in San Francisco, rectify a lot of that. And instead of concerts being taped on Radio Shack gear, he has the best stuff and he takes it to a lot of shows. Recently, his kids have been looking through his archives, which I understand are really extensive. And one of the first releases from that archive is an album called That Which Colors the Mind by Ali Akbar Khan. This was taped at the Fillmore, May 29th, 1970. So some of the best Indian classical players on this record. It's Ali Akbar Khan and Indranil Bhattacharya. And I guess one of the big stars of the show too is Zakir Hussain, who's just a killer on tablas. So that's a new release that has come out that I've had playing quite a bit. And then a good accompaniment to that is the new album by Rhye, Rhye, and the album is called Home. And it's kind of hard to classify this record. It's really well produced and kind of R&B feel, but not in any way cheesy. Great beats, really cool sonic textures, and like I'm a big fan of not adhering to verse, chorus, middle eight. So this is very, very cool in terms of how these songs are put together, and and how they're presented. Those are big for me. And then I thought I would just bring into in McCartney 3, I wanted to give a shout out to our good friend Macca, following up his
our bowling buddy.
Our bowling buddy. Yeah, way better than McCartney 2. And I think Macca's really on a roll. His last album was Egypt Station, which I think is maybe 2 years ago now, and was just real favorite of mine, still is. Have that one on a lot. McCartney 3, I feel like captures a lot of vibe of Ram, which was largely self-recorded on his farm. And this one is, from what I understand, pretty much all recorded in quarantine, McCartney 3, and is just really playful and fun, and Macca still rocks and can sing like he's still in his 20s. He's it's Paul McCartney, man.
Yeah, well, for anybody who doesn't know, the McCartney 1, 2, and 3 are titled as such because those are the albums where he's doing everything. I believe producing as well as playing all of the instruments, and and then I guess Ram was probably just him and Linda, right?
Yeah, which I think is great. I mean, a lot of people make fun of Linda for her contribution on that record, but I think it's wonderful. I think that the way that she sings, she's not trying to sound like anyone else, and it sounds like two people that are in love and like playing music together on a Scottish farm with a bunch of goats.
Yeah, and Ram, and also, if anybody doesn't know, Ram is just an unbelievable album. It's, I would say, like, just going to what my top McCartney albums are, I'd probably put Band on the Run ahead of it, but that's it. Like, Ram is second to just that. Ram is definitely one of his best ever. I'm a little split, on McCartney 3 with you. I don't love it, but it, like, at this point, I'll take really anything. I'm happy just to have the work, just to see that he's still doing his thing, and it's an album that gave me a few songs I do enjoy. I do, like I enjoy Long-Tailed Winter Bird, Kiss of Venus, Seize the Day, which, lyrically so but musically great. I'll take that. Like, I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't feel like it's an album, like, it shouldn't be anybody's introduction to Paul McCartney by any means.
Hey, here's this guy that you've probably never heard of.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be your starting point. It shouldn't be your jump off point. But and I feel like I'd only give it a very strong recommendation if I felt like it could be, even though with McCartney that makes it that much more difficult because of, the guy was in a little known band called the Beatles. So if you don't know them, Google them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I'm happy enough with this album. Of course, in this era of streaming, it's not like I went out and bought it either. I stream it just like most people, but yeah, I guess that's another basis for whether or not I would recommend something or not. Is it worth buying? Maybe not. But it's all right, and I'm happy. Like, I'm just happy to see Mock out there doing his thing.
Right on.
All right. I do have a few more albums. I don't know, like, I don't know if you have more that you want to get to, or if I should just kind of rifle through the ones I still have yet to go.
I've got one more that I want to talk about. So one idea that we talked about was just like what's on your turntable recently. Mm-hmm. So I just brought the big stack of records that are usually out in front. that I've played recently, usually when, especially when my wife and I are playing ping pong in our living room. So, want to give a shout out to Mississippi Studios and Cairo Records, who have been putting out these really cool, kind of obscure soul and R&B compilations. And I don't think this is their latest one, but my buddy Nick O'Cone, who is definitely in the music game as we are, sent me this one. It's called "Do You Believe It?" It's American soul music, 1960 to 1972. It's great. A lot of groups that maybe you haven't heard of, and a few little nuggets from people that maybe you have. So you have some Irma Thomas on here. You have let's see, who's someone, Bobby Womack, and let's see, William Bell. A lot of bands that maybe only put out a few 45s. It's a really comprehensive, well sequenced 3 albums of just great music. So thank you, Mississippi Records and Cairo Records.
Nice. Okay, so I have 3 albums that I definitely feel are worth recommending. The first, which is I'm gonna build to the best of them as I go. The first one I'm a little mixed on, but I do think it's worth a recommendation, and that is the new solo album by Buck Meek, which is called Two Saviors. Buck Meek is in a band called Big Thief, pretty well-known indie band on the Brooklyn music scene, and I think this is his second full-length solo album, and I like it. Like this, like I said, this isn't my strongest recommendation, but it is, I think, one that is pretty easy to like. It's very songwriter-ish. Has a nice, like, I don't really have something that I think is like a really great comparison to make with this, but basically it's a mostly acoustic songwriting driven album, so it's nothing too alien to anyone. But he does have his own style, I would say. And then my stronger recommendations, like 2 albums that I really love, that came out both in January. Steve Earle's JT, which is a tribute to his late son, Justin Townes Earle. It was released on January 4th, which was Justin Townes Earle. It would have been his birthday, and I absolutely love it. Like the song selection here, it's 10 Justin Townes Earle songs, and then 1 Steve Earle original that was about the last time he had a conversation with his son.
Oh man, that's such a sad. Yeah, it's so sad to read about that album. And Justin Townes was a really talented guy. I've listened to a lot of his records, and to have to pay tribute to your kid like that, it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I can't imagine it was easy to do, but it is a great piece of work. It serves as an excellent introduction for anybody that isn't familiar with Justin Townes Earle's songs already, because like I said, the song selection is really on point. It's every song is just an absolute gem, and yeah, like, you definitely want to make a point to check out, if you're not already familiar with the originals, you want to make a point to check those out. But I really like these arrangements a lot. It's very bluegrassy arrangements to these songs. Not a drastic left turn from what they were originally, but different enough. Like, definitely giving them a new touch. Um, but just great. Like just it's not a bad place to acquaint yourself with the work of Justin Townes Earle if you're not already acquainted, but you should be one way or the other. So either through this album or through the originals, but definitely make a point to check that out.
Right, and if you're, I'm in Oakland, California, so if you're in the Bay Area, you probably know or probably have seen both or either Steve Earle or Justin Townes Earle at Hardly Strictly Bluegrass. Both of them show up almost every year. I remember, I think probably just a few weeks after I moved down here full time about 10 years ago, I got backstage passes to Hardly Strictly, which is a huge festival in Golden Gate Park. Lots of good performers, and was in the backstage area waiting for Guy Clark to go on. And kind of waiting in like the fenced off beer garden, good view of the stage, and probably about 11:30 in the morning, 12:30 in the afternoon, and watching Guy Clark play. It's really good. And there's this guy that is, I can kind of tell, is like sidled up next to me on the fence, watching from the same place, and it's Steve Earle. And I look at Steve Earle and he kind of smiles at me and he says, "That guy's pretty good." So yeah, it's Guy Clark. Anyway, good recommendations. Should we? And I want to remind everybody that we're gonna link a lot of these tunes to our Left of the Dial Spotify playlist. But yeah, should we talk about
I still have my big one.
Oh, what's your big one, man?
Oh, my big one is the second album. Definitely not a sophomore slump, but the new album from Goat Girl called On All Fours. So this one was released right at the end of January, so it's still new to me, still new to the world, but excellent. Just like the JT album is great, and I recommend that very strongly. This one's my biggest recommendation of the month of the year so far. So anybody familiar with the self-titled Goat Girl debut? This is a bit different. It's not like they're suddenly a different band, but kind of a different approach. I think it's safe to say there's a lot more studio craft to this. The first album was really guitar driven, and this is very synthesizer driven. It sounds quite a bit like a Stereolab album.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said, more studio craft, more synthesizers. The production though is not, when I say more studio craft, I'm not talking like glossy commercial kind of, like turn off sort of stuff for me. This is not that sort of thing, but just great, and the songs are great. A lot of what I've read about this album so far mentions the lyrics, and I gotta tell you, I'm not even to the point where I'm really picking apart the lyrics because the music is so interesting, and the singing is so interesting too. Like the voices, the vocals are very seductive, especially when they're in harmony, but just kind of all around. And the songs, like there isn't really a bad song on this album. I really love it. Give it a super strong recommendation, and the first album is great too, but this is more the songs feel a lot more fully formed, whereas there was a sketchiness to the songs on the first album, even though I would recommend that one as well.
Okay, right on.
So yeah, totally love that. But yeah, far and away, Goat Girl and Steve Earle's JT are my strongest recommendations of the year so far.
Thanks for keeping me in the loop, Sean.
You're welcome. Yeah, and like Richard said, we have a Spotify page where we will be posting songs that we've mentioned and maybe a few that we haven't mentioned.
Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, but check it
The
out.
suspense.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be back with more Left of the Dial later in this week. We'll have a little Valentine's Day special that we'll be doing, and we'll get that out before the holiday comes.
Yeah, don't miss it.